Welcome back to day 3 of the 2021 AMS Washington Forum, presented by the Board on Enterprise Economic Development. We are up to session 5, Making Weather, Water, and Climate Programs Happen, Perspectives from Federal Agency Procurement Leaders. This was a session that my colleague Renee Ledoux and others had suggested would be quite valuable to this community, so I'm so delighted that we're able to do that this year. And Renee, without further ado, I'm going to kick it to you so that you can introduce our moderator for today. Renee.
Great, thank you, Jen. And yes, just to reiterate a bit of what Jen said, this is not the type of session that we've done before inside of really the AMS Washington Forum, but we thought it would be particularly of interest to really the very important government contractor community, which is such an important part of really the weather water enterprise. And so I'm really pleased to introduce our moderator for today. Our moderator is John Cousins. He's a senior program manager at General Dynamics Information Technology. He specifically supports IT contracts for NOAA and for Navy at Stennis Space Center. And prior to that, he was a program manager for weather, water, and climate at Raytheon. And then he had a distinguished career inside of uniformed service inside of the Navy. He served as chief of staff to the commander of the Naval Meteorology and Oceanography Command. And so certainly knows our weather, water, and climate issues well. And so thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, John, and I look forward to this panel.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate the introduction there, and I welcome everybody to our forum today. I'm greatly pleased that we have 2 tremendous speakers today. Our first is going to be Major Nessa Hoke. She's a U.S. Air Force weather officer with over 13 years of experience in her field, providing direct weather support to the U.S. Air Force and U.S. Army ground and air crews in support of various missions and exercises around the globe. Major Hoke has acquisition and program management experience as the Chief of Weather Integration for the Weather Program Office, where she guided the capability, developmental planning, procurement, and sustainment of the Air Force's weather $842 million system portfolio. In her current job as the program element monitor at the headquarters of the Air Staff, Major Hoke is responsible for securing and justifying funds to the Air Force corporate structure and Congress for Air Force weather and oversees the strategy, design, planning, programming, budgeting, and execution of the more than $2 billion that U.S. Air Force weather has in their annual portfolio. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Major Nessa Hoke. Nessa, I turn it over to you. Please make some comments.
Well, thanks, John, very much for that introduction. And it's a real pleasure to be at this panel today to discuss the perspective of procurement efforts and acquisition strategy through the lens of Air Force Weather Enterprise. And before I really get into that, I'm going to give just a brief description of what Air Force Weather does for those that might not be that familiar with it. So the Air Force Weather Service is composed of a family of systems that act as a force multiplier, and they provide the Department of Defense decision makers and our warfighters with timely, accurate, and relevant environmental impacts and weather data information. The Air Force Weather Enterprise provides direct support to the Joint Force, specifically the Air Force, the Army, and now we have the U.S. Space Force that's being stood up as well. And in addition to that, we also support the intelligence community. And in order to provide the right environmental expertise to these agencies, we at Air Force Weather coordinate combined efforts in collecting, researching, and providing meteorological and oceanographic information alongside partners with the US Navy, the UK's Met Office, and many other US government and industry weather partners that we have. Our weather system portfolio, that consists of surface-based atmospheric and space weather sensors. We also have information analysis, processing, and dissemination systems that provide essential environmental sensing, sense-making, information integration, and information orchestration capabilities. Our terrestrial weather programs are managed at Lifecycle Management Center, or LCMC, and our space weather programs are managed by the Space and Missile Center, SMC, which will soon be transitioned over to Space Systems Command. With that kind of transition, our partners in the U.S. Space Force will be taking ownership of 4 of our current ground-based space weather sensing and forecasting programs that are in the Department of Air Force in fiscal year 2023. And that's just to best align and consolidate space domain awareness capabilities under their authority. So getting kind of into the meat of what we do in procurement for Air Force weather. The procurement priorities for Air Force weather are mostly in part driven by the needs of the Joint Force and the intelligence community through a formal requirements process. So to do that, we developing a requested weather capability. Major commands and organizations from the Army and the Air Force, Space Force, and the intelligence community, they all identify their future capability gaps and provide them to Headquarters Air Force Weather and to the lead command for weather, which in our case is Air Combat Command. So at Headquarters Air Force Weather, what we do is provide strategic vision, policy, and advocacy, and help facilitate any interagency or international agreements that capability may require. And then at Lead Command, they're at Air Combat Command, they validate, prioritize those weather capability gaps that are then planned, programmed, and budgeted within our available fiscal year budget and timelines. And these are done for both the current and future weather systems and services that we are looking at onboarding. Once these program requirements are validated, prioritized, and planned into the budget, then we turn that over to our program offices to engineer the technical solutions and develop, acquire, field, and sustain those programs and the weather services throughout their life cycle. Once those technical solutions are delivered to the warfighter, weather units integrate and operate them to meet combatant commanders' needs, and at that point, they'll determine whether any additional weather requirements are needed. And if they do determine that, then we start this whole capability development cycle all over again. As an organization under the Department of Defense, one of our first priorities in Air Force weather for capability development and procurement is supporting the efforts and direction given by the Secretary of Defense, and primarily that's through what's given in the National Defense Strategy. So the most recent National Defense Strategy for 2018 had a significant shift in our defense posture, and that was to focus on new challenges within our world. Most notably, those challenges include how our global security environment has become increasingly more complex. Part of that is due to the decline in the longstanding rules-based international order that we have going on, as well as the reemergence of long-term strategic competition we have with nations such as China and Russia. And then, of course, we have the normal challenges of adversaries that are operating across every domain. And all of this is exacerbated by that rapid speed of information exchange and technological advances that is just ever increasing in our world today. So under the National Defense Strategy, the Department of Defense is pursuing 3 distinct lines of effort. The first is rebuilding military readiness to build a more lethal joint force. The second is strengthening alliances as we attract new partners. And the third is reforming Department of Defense business practices for greater performance and affordability. And as I mentioned before, the National Defense Strategies are bedrock for our procurement priorities. So I'm going to kind of step through each line of effort from the National Defense Strategy separately and expound upon how our weather procurement efforts kind of support that line of effort. So for that first line of effort to improve readiness for a more lethal force, Air Force Weather really focuses our procurement efforts on improving integration of our weather products and services across the joint force, whether that's here at home station in the United States or whether deployed globally across the world. And that's to provide critical environmental intelligence in support of decision makers across that full spectrum of air and space combat operations. The development of Air Force weather services, that is really key to enhance the lethality, effectiveness, resiliency, and overall survivability of the Air Force weather systems and our precision munitions that we utilize. In order to do that, we have to have modernized forecast capabilities that accurately predict environmental impacts to optimize mission execution. The capability enhancements and research development that we do at Air Force Weather and what we look for are things that can articulate the edge that we have over our competitors, whether that be in forecasting, processing, high performance computing, or other areas relative to the Air Force's and DoD's specialized needs, or if we can emphasize how that provides focused warfighter integration, all of that helps sharpen value added to a contract proposal that we're looking at when we're looking at working with different partners. For the second line of effort, which is strengthening alliances and partnerships, Air Force weather development efforts really are to integrate the environmental data and services from across all of our partner and organizations, which include, as I mentioned before, DoD, other governmental agencies, our trusted coalition partners and allies, the commercial industry, and we also have folks in academia that we team with as well. And all of this data is consumed within our Air Force Weather Information System equipment that provides all of the processing and storing, exploitating, and overall dissemination of our multi-domain weather information that's used for analysis, forecasting, mission integration, and just overall greater warfighter interoperability. And we really do that to ensure data redundancy for operating in a contested environment. So designing services and products that are flexible enough to be potentially shared or easily modified for sharing with interagency and coalition partners really provides merit to Air Force Weather and our value proposition for contract acquisition. And for the third line of effort, which is to ensure greater performance and affordability for the DoD, Air Force weather systems right now are being rapidly modernized through improvements to our system architecture to attack what inefficiencies we might have to get higher performance. And this is most notable in our efforts to mitigate, or excuse me, to migrate our enterprise services to the cloud. So hosting those weather data analysis and dissemination capabilities within the cloud provides us a cyber secure and continuous integration and continuous delivery, or CI/CD environment for our software development, as well as large-scale data ingest, processing, product generation. We also utilize some machine-to-machine dissemination of mission-tailored weather data on demand. And then we utilize all of that weather data to have it integrated and to be interoperable with command and control systems, both at the tactical and operational levels. Moreover, we are planning to reduce the required numbers of operating systems, eliminate data duplication, decrease our own physical footprint, and reduce end-of-life, end-of-service limitations for our weather systems by this migration to the cloud. As another example in efficiencies, we work to produce some technical and cost efficiencies by combining and consolidating contracts for our fixed-base weather systems and to replace some of the commercial off-the-shelf components and procure data rights to enable a government-managed baseline that promotes vendor competition. And where we're looking with budgetary impacts left over for COVID-19, making sure that we can have a lot of these greater performance and affordabilities for our systems is going to be highly prized, as the future budget environment can be quite lean in the next couple of years in different organizations. So tacking on to the National Defense Strategy, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, General Brown, has further emphasized the National Defense Strategy's lines of effort and his strategic guidance to airmen to accelerate change or lose. In a world that is driven by rapidly changing technology and an environment that includes aggressive and capable global competitors, his action orders are driving the Department of Defense to challenge the status quo and to make necessary changes in our Air Force today to be ready for the fight tomorrow. So in order to accelerate change for Air Force design implementation, we're determining what systems we need in the future and then making tough decisions now that support that vision, whether that might be reducing outdated or unaffordable systems and then putting more of that funding into getting closer to some more competitive capabilities. With that alignment to the Chief of Staff's action orders, we're taking on a number of digital transformation procurement efforts to re-envision our data architecture and to accelerate change for Air Force weather by modernizing our systems and services to be flexible enough to meet demand for environmental information at both speed and scale. As I previously mentioned, we have begun an aggressive timeline to migrate our data infrastructure to a virtual private cloud and a CI/CD environment. And this cloud computing environment will allow for further development and expansion that we're looking to do in artificial intelligence and machine learning applications, as well as DevSecOps software development under our Weather Applications Rapid Production or Warp Speed program. These efforts are key to current and future endeavors to leverage agile DevSecOps and big data management to ensure that Air Force weather is fully integrated with the joint all-domain sensing grid, and most importantly, to ensure a cybersecure platform for our current and future products and services. To emphasize this cybersecurity need, Air Force Weather's digital transformation also follows the new Department of Defense data strategy goals, which was put out in 2020, which is all about the acronym VALTIS, which is VAULTIS. And the goal of VALTIS is to make data V for visible, A for accessible, U for understandable, L for linked, T for trustworthy, I for interoperable, and S for secure. And these 7 goals are key for Air Force to get into the joint all-domain operations and for our cloud-based data sharing. Now, the final 2 pieces of strategic guidance for our procurement priorities comes from President Biden's new administration's emphasis on climate change mitigation, as well as the Department of the Air Force's Arctic strategy that was put out earlier this year. Both strategic guidance acknowledge a changing physical environment that will greatly impact human access and activity in global areas. So to meet President Biden's charge to the DoD for climate mitigation, the Department of Defense has 4 lines of effort designed to aid in these endeavors. The first effort is focused on installation vulnerability and resilience. The second is on climate change science and technology research. The third is reduction in greenhouse gases and energy efficiencies. And the final line of effort is on contingency preparedness for extreme weather events. To aid in these endeavors, Air Force Weather is developing new and enhanced environmental sciences and technology research with focus on hydrology, seasonal to sub-seasonal forecasting and assessments, and specialized numerical weather prediction for cloud, aerosol, and water and drought analysis and forecasting. And we're doing this alongside other allies and partners to prepare for increased Arctic competition and changing environments across the globe. So the final keys to success in Air Force acquisition is speed and innovation. In recognition of the need for speed and innovation within the Department of Defense acquisition, and to help us keep ahead of our competitors in that field, Congress has allowed DoD organizations to utilize other approaches outside of the normal and usually lengthy federal contract and acquisition processes. And some of the greatest successes Air Force Weather has recently in our procurement programs have come through our efforts to utilize these other contracting approaches. So several of note include the 804 middle tier acquisition, which was created under NDAA 2016 Section 804, and then the software acquisition pathway program under NDAA 2020 Section 800. So the middle tier acquisition enables rapid prototyping and fielding, and the software acquisition pathway program is the ability to utilize DevSecOps, produce a material solution directly alongside the user. In both these efforts, we're hoping to get ahead of any type of research and development and shorten that whole development cycle to field capability to the users faster. We've also utilized broad agency announcements and other transactional authorities to speed research and development for Air Force Weather. So in the Air Force Weather enterprise, we've adopted a common approach for speed and innovation through an iterative process to invest in improvements, fail fast if a solution doesn't work, iterate and pivot again to continually enhance our capability and the capabilities of our partners. To accomplish this and to get a head start on longer lead future technologies, Air Force Weather has often also leveraged efforts such as AFWERX programs to capitalize on rapid innovative research and development opportunities. And we've also leveraged such efforts as the Small Business Innovative Research, SBIR, as well as the Small Business Technology Transfer, STTR, to speed research, development, test, and evaluation efforts for our next generation weather sensors and weather services development. So in conclusion, Air Force Weather Enterprise is in lockstep with strategic guidance from the National Defense Strategy and the Department of Air Force for its procurement efforts. And the key factors for our contracting success has been in modernizing our weather data infrastructure and the utilization of the rapid innovative acquisition efforts with our industry partners that speed capability development to the tactical warfighter. And with that, I will hand it back over to John.
Thank you, Major Hoke. I appreciate that in-depth overview of the U.S. Air Force Procurement Program. And for all of our participants, we're going to hold questions for Major Hoke until after our next speaker. But if you've got anything right now, please go ahead and enter them into the chat. And the same thing as we proceed with our next speaker. And it's my great honor to introduce Mr. Jeffrey Thomas. Mr. Thomas is the Director of the Acquisition and Grants Office of the Naval Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. This is a bureau of the Department of Commerce, which I'm sure all of you are aware of. Mr. Thomas served as the Deputy Director of the AGO for 2 years before he moved up into his current position. Mr. Thomas began his federal service in the contracting field in 1988 when he joined the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Federal Highway Administration. And he had a wide range of responsibilities during that portion of his career, and became an actual contracting officer in 1990. He continued in that capacity for over 9 years, and he managed a progressively more complex portfolio of programs. In 2010, Mr. Thomas joined the Office of the Secretary of Transportation, Office of the Senior Procurement Executive as the Associate Director of Acquisition Policy Oversight and Business Strategies. In this role, he led the management of departmental acquisition policy oversight, departmental reporting activities for OMB and Congress, and provided support to the department's Acquisition Strategy Review Board. He also served as the department's acquisition career manager as a departmental representative to the Civilian Agency Acquisition Council. Mr. Thomas graduated from George Mason University, and with a BS in Public Administration, he also obtained his Master's of Public Administration in Procurement and Contracting from George Washington University in 1994. Mr. Thomas completed the Federal Executive Institute's Leadership for Democratic Society program in 2012 and holds a Level 3 Federal Acquisitions Certification in Contracting. Mr. Thomas, we look forward to your comments and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk at the AMS conference this year. I had the pleasure of attending the event in person back when we had in-person meetings a few years ago, and it was really a terrific experience getting to listen to all the really smart people involved in the weather business here in the United States. So I appreciate the opportunity. What I'm going to be doing is kind of running through a little slide deck for folks who may not have an awareness of NOAA's overall programmatic footprint, because it really helps inform the discussion about how we go about our acquisition and financial assistance business. So bear with me if you already know some of this stuff, but I thought it would be good to start there so we can have an informed discussion later. Next slide. So, one of the things, I'm a history geek, so I was one of the things that really attracted me to NOAA was that it's a really old organization. It has its roots going back to Thomas Jefferson with the founding of the U.S. Coast Survey. And of course, the Weather Bureau founded in 1870 and the Commission on Fish and Fisheries in 1871. These three organizations really formed the first physical science agency of the United States. So I think that linkage back to Thomas Jefferson is pretty cool. And of course, in 1970, we were established under the Department of Commerce officially as NOAA, done by administrative order. So we really don't have an organic act. Next slide. And of course, our mission is to understand and predict changes in climate, weather, oceans, and coast, to share that knowledge, and to conserve and manage coastal and marine ecosystem and resources. Again, just looking at that, you can tell that the scope and breadth of our mission is really broad. We'd like to say it's from the surface of the sun to the bottom of the ocean. So we have a lot of different mission sets that we're responsible for, which makes for a very interesting business environment from my perspective, from an acquisition seat anyway. Next slide. So of course, the core of the delivery of NOAA's mission is around the National Weather Service, Ocean Service, Marine Fisheries Service, our National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service, NESDIS, and of course, Office of Atmospheric Research, and Office of Marine and Aviation Operations. We own and manage a fleet of ships and aircraft that we use to help support our mission. But this is really where the rubber hits the road in terms of NOAA accomplishing its mission. And again, as you can see, it is truly a varied mission area. Again, makes it very dynamic. Next slide. So where is NOAA? As you would expect with such a diverse mission set, we are all over the place, literally. We have a footprint in every single state of the union. This chart here, depicts where our heavy locations are, of course, in the DC area, along the coast. We have a large presence in Boulder, Colorado, and of course up in Seattle. And again, this really just reflects the complexity of the mission. We have one of the things that again makes it interesting on the business side is we have a very large physical footprint that we manage. We have over 700 buildings across the U.S. and territories. So that makes for an interesting part of managing our business line. It's also one of the things that's driving us to look at our footprint across the country and look for opportunities to better leverage our resources and perhaps do some consolidation. We have a number of studies going on right now around that. But that's again, reflective of the diverse mission that we have is our diverse geographic locations. Next slide. And again, sticking with this theme of diversity of mission sets, we have a whole host of specialized facilities and locations that we have around the country. Our science and research labs, our national centers for environmental prediction, 13 national marine sanctuaries, 5 national marine monuments, and of course our Center for Satellite Application and Research. Again, just highlighting the diverse nature of our mission, and again the vast footprint that we have of sites and locations that we manage as a part of our acquisition program. Next slide. Core assets. We have 122 Doppler radars, 16 satellites that we operate in an entire buoy network, 15 ships, and 10 aircraft. I'll be talking a little bit about that. We have a pretty significant effort underway with our fleet and aircraft recapitalization programs that we're very excited about. And of course, our high performance computing capability. We have 2 operational supercomputers executing the numerical models to produce environmental forecasts, and 3 weather and climate research supercomputers that we have. So again, a pretty impressive array of assets that we use to support the mission. Next slide. So, and of course, NOAA does not do all these mission sets by ourselves. We have a vast array of partners with whom we engage with to deliver the mission, both internationally as all the way down to our NGOs and everybody in between. We literally could not get our job done without the close partnership we have with our friends in industry, both corporate and academia, as well as our partnerships with other government agencies. So we really rely on all of this full range of partners to deliver our mission. Makes it a little complicated sometimes, but that's just a little spice for the sauce. So that's all good. Next slide. So I wanted to kind of run you through what our discretionary budgets look like over time. I see it's relatively stable. The past a few years, the president's budget, starting in 2018, was a little lower than what Congress had authorized ultimately. This past year, we had an authorization of $5.4 billion, and I'll be talking a little bit more about that. In FY22, the president's budget is for 6.9, and that's obviously a pretty big increase and reflective of the new administration's emphasis on climate areas that NOAA is specialized in. So we have some big opportunities with the new president's budget. Of course, Congress is going to have something to say about that, but we're very pleased with the president's budget that was submitted, and I think also reflects the confidence that the new administration has in NOAA's ability to deliver value for the taxpayer utilizing those additional resources. Next slide. So in terms of the business side of the house, NOAA's budget last year, FY20, was about $5.4 billion. Of that, more than half of NOAA's discretionary budget goes out the door through either acquisitions or financial assistance. About 30% of that goes out through contracts, and about 28% goes out through financial assistance. So NOAA relies heavily on our contract partners and our financial assistance partners to deliver the mission. In addition to the obligations we have in any given year, the acquisition area has a managed portfolio of about $16 billion at any given time. About 10.2 billion of that is on the contract side, and about 5.8 billion on the financial assistance side. So again, this is our relationship with our industry partners is really crucial to us delivering our mission, and we value and appreciate the partnership that we do have with industry. Next slide. On the financial assistance side, just to give you a feel for where the money is coming from for our $1.5 billion in financial assistance. The biggest cut of that comes from the National Marine Fisheries Service, about 47% of the dollars. NOS comes in next. Oh, well, I'm sorry, OAR. Sorry, Craig. OAR is next, with NOS, close behind. So those are really our three big financial assistance programs by line office. And you can see on the slide there, kind of the listing of the our major programs that we have. Next slide. Looking at the business end on the acquisition side, our NESDIS is our largest client from the Acquisition and Grants Office. They spend the most money through acquisitions, followed closely by the National Weather Service. They're really our two biggest procuring organizations within NOAA. And the others fall behind. One of the things that is interesting on the business side is that, although the NESDIS work represents about 24% of our acquisition dollars, in terms of the number of transactions, it's only about 7% of our transactions. And that's kind of what you would expect, where you have a large program area that is dealing in high-end assets, satellite operations and observing systems. So we have fewer very large dollar procurements along there. And some of our other clients are kind of on the inverse of that. They have not so much in terms of obligation, but a lot of transactions. That's just telling us that we have a lot of, it really gets back, I was talking before about all those specialized facilities and things. So we have a lot of small buying areas that are not spending a lot of money, but they're generating a lot of transactions because the work is a little smaller in scope than satellites. Next slide. So in terms of what it is that we buy, almost a quarter of what we buy is in the IT area. We have the computer systems design and the custom computer programming services. So about a quarter of what we buy is in the IT area. But again, reflecting the diverse mission that we have a lot of small slices of the pie for buying. And again, that makes for a little bit of a challenge on the buying side, because we need to be creative when we're thinking about strategic sourcing. And how it is that we're being smart about what it is that we buy, because we buy a little bit of a whole lot of different things. So that's from my perspective anyway, that's a little bit of a challenge area that we work closely with our clients on to be sure that we can be efficient and effective in delivering services for them. On the financial assistance side, the vast majority of our dollars go to institutions of higher education. You saw on the previous slide. Certainly our Cooperative Institute program is a big part of that. We value the relationships we have with our CIs, and they're terrific partners. And so the education gets a lot of the money that comes through us. But we also have a large share that go through our state, local, and tribal governments. And of course, our NGO partners are in there as well with about $305 million. So anyway, it's a diverse and interesting business line. Managing the acquisition of financial assistance arena, just because of the diverse mission of NOAA and what it is we get to support our clients with. Next slide. So some of the recent awards and activity that we've had, of course, this past year we've awarded the RCCs, the Regional Climate Centers. We're just recently awarded. We have 6 IDIQ contracts, combined value about $50 million. In our OSPO support contract, 10-year contract, about $700 million, providing operation maintenance and sustainment for the NESDIS. And that's obviously a big deal for us. Next slide. The OMEO fleet recapitalization. Right now, NOAA is in the process of making some investments in our fleet, both on the ships as well as aircraft. We're working with the Navy to award a $178 million contract for our Class A vessels. That's our ocean-going vessels, and we have a close partnership with the Navy to build those ships. We also within NOAA we have the Class B vessels that NOAA is managing the acquisition of, and we've just recently had an RFI go out about that. We have a lot of interest from industry around this fleet recapitalization and certainly the Class B ships. So anyway, we're excited to be in the shipbuilding business right now, and that's going to be an exciting time and some good opportunities for some partners that perhaps we haven't done business with in a little while. Next slide, please. Some other big activity we have, of course, the MROS program with the manual radio sound observing system and the automated surface observing system. We have some ongoing programs to do some upgrades around there, and certainly for the ASOS, putting the SLEP program in place and expanding our network of the automated surface observing system. Next slide. And of course, Louis talked on Monday a little bit about the integrated dissemination program and how important and central that is to the National Weather Service. They've pretty much gone through and completed phase 1 and phase 2, looking at enhanced reliability. Phase 3 and 4 are still in progress and looking for some funding. But one of the things that is important in that area is looking at that public cloud space. That's something I know that is important to the Weather Service, and certainly as we look to improve our efficiency and effectiveness with providing the weather information available to the a range of audiences that we provide it to. So anyway, the IDP program is obviously something that's very important to us. Next slide. And of course, we recently awarded our NIMITS contract, our Mission Information Technology Services. This is a really big deal for NOAA. This is one of our strategic sourcing contracts that we use for our mission IT requirements. This is a multiple award BPA off of GSA Schedule 70. We have 30 small business partners, ceiling of about $2.1 billion with a 5-year period of performance with 5 option periods. So it's a long-running contract that has, it's the predecessor. I mean, it's the follow-on to our NOAA Link contracts, which were very successful in terms of helping to support the mission in a very efficient and effective way. Next slide. Of course, for the Weather Service, we recently awarded the WCOS contract. We had a long-term relationship with IBM, which has been very successful. But we awarded it to a new contractor, GDIT, last year, I guess. And we're very happy with GDIT. It's in place for 2020 through 2028 with an option period to 2030. The first task order was $153 million, so it's obviously a substantial award. The COVID, right as we're implementing COVID, has come in and thrown us a couple of curveballs that we're working through, and is likely going to delay the program somewhat. But we're working with GDIT and ensuring that we're not going to skip a beat with the WCOS. That's obviously our premier weather forecasting model. Next slide. And as you just heard on Monday, we had the EPIC award was made, the Earth Prediction Innovation Center, awarded to Raytheon. We're very excited to have Raytheon on as a partner to stand up the EPIC program. And of course, the goal of EPIC is to accelerate scientific research and modeling through continuous and sustained community engagement. This is really, I've heard it described by some as a sandbox for the weather forecast business. So we're really excited to bring Raytheon on as a partner under the EPIC award. Next slide. So on the horizon, some of the things that we're starting to look at, and certainly with our partners in NESDIS, is looking at the next gen satellite system. Of course, we have our planned schedule for the JPSS launches and goes, but we're looking at what's after that. The time planning horizon for satellite systems is long, decade long. So we're really starting to look at what are some of the other ways in which we might deliver this capability. Big platforms versus perhaps something more disaggregated. Certainly small sats are playing a bigger and bigger role in the provision of data in the commercial sector. We also have a number of pilot programs that we have ongoing with the commercial satellite industry, providing data for the Weather Service. So we have that model that's also being looked at, data as a service. And what about a hybrid model? I think looking forward, looking out on the horizon, I think it's probably going to end up being a hybrid of all these things. But certainly these are the things that NESDIS is thinking about long term, and that we'll be providing acquisition support to them as they go through these big conversations and big decision making process about what our next generation satellite systems is going to look like. Next slide. And I know there's a lot of interest in industry about ProTech. Of course, ProTech is our professional technical services contract that we put in place back in 2017. It's hard to believe that we're already starting to plan for ProTech 2.0. It just seems like we did just get the last of the domains awarded somewhat recently. But we are in the process of planning for the satellite domain recompete. So we're excited about that. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. So some of the things that we're looking at doing a little bit different. Of course, we have a lot of history with ProTech now. It's been a very successful program. Our clients like it. Our contracting workforce likes it. And it's been a really valuable tool for us. Some of the things that we're looking at for ProTech 2.0 is a 10-year period of performance. We've been in conversations with the department about getting a waiver to allow for a 10-year contract. And that's something we're definitely going to be pursuing. We don't have a firm answer on that yet, but I think we're having positive conversations around that. ProTech 2.0 is going to have a $8 billion ceiling, again, to go with that longer period of performance, but also reflecting the use that the ProTech domains are getting. So I think we'll be increasing that ceiling. Of course, on the NAICS code, we have a new NAICS code that we'll be using for the satellite domain. The old NAICS code, of course, is expired. It's no longer in use. The size standard for that is 1,250 employees. That's what we're currently looking at. Again, it's not that's not locked in stone, but that's what we're certainly looking at. Obviously we put all of our updates related to program, the ProTech program on beta.sam and also on the ProTech website. One of the things that we're looking at too is really we've learned a lot about the award of the ProTech domains, and one of the things we're looking to do is cut down that award time. Frankly, from my perspective, it took way too long to get the ProTech domains under contract. They were going 15 months from the RFP closure to award. We're really taking a look at that and going to be leveraging some innovative contracting techniques and selection techniques to really cut that down to an 8-month is what our goal is. We're looking at using advisory down select, the use of oral presentations and confidence ratings, certainly on-the-spot consensus evaluation, and also some streamlined documentation. So we're really looking to close that window for how long it takes us to make these awards under ProTech 2.0. Next slide. And again, here's just some of the schedules that we have for ProTech 2.0 for you. You obviously can't hold me to this. This is what we estimate, but we're going to be aggressively pursuing the schedule to get to a new award in November of 22. Next slide. So kind of looking at the big picture, some of the things that I think of in our business line right now is that are influencing the acquisition space, right? How we go about buying goods and services in support of our mission is really this idea of the confluence of science, technology, and services. Right now, across the federal government, there's a lot of emphasis on strategic sourcing and aggregating buys and things like that. We're taking a little bit different approach to it. There's OMB, they have a lot of emphasis on the category management, right? Buying engineers by the pound or buying software by the pound. I look at it from my perspective just a little bit differently for NOAA's mission set in particular. So much of what we do is not strictly IT. It's not strictly science. It's almost always a mix of science and technology and service. So we need to think about how we go about organizing our strategic sourcing programs a little bit differently than perhaps might be appropriate for some other organizations. That was really some of the genesis behind ProTech, is really looking at strategic sourcing more as a tool to help a specific mission set, pulling together a group of vendors who understand our mission, who have the technical chops to compete in our mission space, and pulling them in as partners. That is what our basic foundational approach to ProTech has been, is to find businesses that are interested in the NOAA mission, invest in the NOAA mission, and are going to be able to contribute to the NOAA missions. And that's been true. We've really been pleased with the partnership that we have, and similar to with Nimitz. It's that same model. We're not looking just to buy programmers by the pound. We're looking to buy organizations that understand the weather mission and understand how to leverage technology to help support the weather mission. So it's a little bit different than some of the other strategic sourcing initiatives across federal government. But in my mind, that's really driven by this confluence of science and technology in how we acquire services to help our mission. And of course, one of the things that's always on my mind is the acquisition workforce. As we're looking at these more complicated models of going under contract and having more complicated arrangements, as we're utilizing OTAs more, we need to have a different skill set than might have traditionally been in there. John, are you giving me the hook?
Yes, sir. We wanted to provide an opportunity then to our audience then to ask some questions. Thank you very much. That was a great briefing today. I appreciate that very much. For anybody in the audience, please enter your questions in the chat. Major Hoke, the first question, we had a question then talking about the Space Force, and then whether their weather capabilities, did they actually, were they transferred from the Air Force? Is the Air Force going to be supporting them environmentally, or will they be generating their own space weather capabilities?
Yeah, thanks, John. It's a good question. So we're transferring Air Force weather programs. So some of our space weather sensing as well as forecasting programs are being transferred to the space program, Space Force, I should say. However, the personnel who are actually doing the forecasting, our airmen, are still going to stay in the Air Force. The Space Force Guardians will not have that Air Force or weather capability set as they look to come on board. So kind of to break it down, we'll provide the personnel expertise, and Space Force will hold the programs for that space weather procurement. Hopefully that answered the question.
Okay, great. I guess, Mr. Thomas, I had a question based on the 2022 budget submissions from NOAA. So we saw a significant, in your graph there, very impressive that we're looking for, a large increase. Can you provide any details where within the NOAA budget, particularly, on the meteorological side for our audience, will they be seeing, some of the benefits of that?
Yeah, I think they'll be seeing some of the benefits of that, certainly in the one of the things that is, again, you're talking about our mission set and the crossover of our mission sets, right? There's a lot of linkage between weather and ocean service. So I know a lot of the money is designated for our ocean service, looking at coastal resiliency and some of those related programs. I also think that there is some increase for weather service too. But John, I don't have the specifics on the increases for weather. But I know certainly on the ocean side is a pretty significant bump.
Okay, great. We had a second question then for Mr. Thomas then. Is there any movement on the consolidation of some of the line office non-mission IT technologies known as BOSS?
Not that's come to my level, John, but that's not saying there aren't discussions going on below my level. But I don't have any firsthand information on that. I'm sorry.
No, understanding. I understand when that goes through. And a second one, that Congress typically hasn't passed the federal budget by the start of the fiscal year. So how do you learn to live with the continuing resolutions, and what challenges do you still face in procuring services due to those continuing resolutions?
Yeah, the continuing resolution issue, it does provide a lot of challenges for us. And what it really ends up doing is compressing the acquisition schedule because our clients are hesitant to put things in the hopper until they know they're going to have the money to fund them. Frankly, we don't want to be putting out a bunch of solicitations that may or may not get funded either. So what it's really done is it really continues to compress the acquisition cycle to the third and fourth quarter. So we end up with these very large, heavy workloads in the third and fourth quarter. That I'm sure every contracting officer who's been around a while, knows that the third and fourth quarter, you don't plan vacations, right? You don't take time off. I see Major smiling a little bit. I think she's been through that too. But one of the things that we have been doing is working in closer collaboration with the CFO community, both at the NOAA level as well as at the line office level, to really hone in and target on those programs that we know we have a high degree of confidence that they're going to go forward. And we're just waiting for the Congress to do its thing. So we've really had a closer relationship with the CFO community to target those projects and get those started early on the business side, even if we don't yet have the funding actually secured. And that allows us to get things going and have things so that when we do get the money, we're able to hit the go button and accelerate that schedule a little bit. But it certainly does continue to create problems for us. And, oftentimes we'll end up having to push money to the next fiscal year, which doesn't make our CFOs happy at all, because then they have to justify the carryover and whatnot. So it remains to be a challenge, but the solution is collaboration with our clients, with the CFO community. Major, I don't know if you have any thoughts around that too.
Yeah, and Jeff, you hit it right on the head. That compressed time scale is really the kicker that we have is, and unfortunately, the metrics that OSD a lot of times holds us to actually making sure we're spending the money like we had planned. They don't give us any break for a continuing resolution. So we're usually always a little bit behind the curve already starting the year once we actually get our initial distribution of money. So just like Jeff said, it's being able to work with our partners, with our financial folks, and being able to really step up and have our contract acquisition, what we're going to put money on, ready to go as soon as possible when those funds flow, and try to get those knocked out as quickly as possible.
Great. Thank you, Major. Thank you, Mr. Chomps. Renee Leduc, you had a question you wanted to ask?
Sure. Thanks. I will take the opportunity to do it live, given that I'm here on the Zoom. I do have a question for Jeff, more about the sort of interplay between contractors and really contracting staff, as well as really the scientific and programmatic staff. At times, it seems like across the different line offices, as well as across the various different offices within line offices, there's sort of an uneven level of interaction between contract and industry teams prior to basically RFP. We find this to be really challenging, given that some offices are incredibly locked down. They're like, we just don't talk to contractors, even though they have a major thing that is basically coming up, versus others are very forthcoming. And basically, I personally feel like we can write better proposals when we have more information. However, I'm certainly interested in making sure that everyone gets all of that information. How are you working as really the leader of basically AGO to deal with these issues, trying to not get it completely locked down, but then at the same time, having the right kind of dialogue?
Yeah, Renee, that's a great point. one of the things that we continue to try to educate our clients, right, is that we encourage you, when we're in the requirements development phase, we encourage you to go out and talk to industry. As a contracting person, I know that we're going to get better proposals. We're going to get more informed people. We're going to have people more familiar with our market, right, if we're out there talking to them. It is a challenge. We have some organizations who embrace that, and we have some who are still coming along and a little hesitant to do that. Right? They're afraid of going to jail. They're saying, "I don't want to go to jail." You're not going to go to jail. It's okay. We want you to go out. One of the things, and I'll tell you, one of the things I do is I try to set the good example, and I meet with vendors all the time. Every month, I'm meeting with vendors who come in and request meetings. And I talk about those engagements with our clients. But it's an education thing. I think part of it's an education thing, right? To let our CORs and our program managers know it's okay to talk to industry. It's a good thing to talk to industry. It's a best practice to talk to industry. We want you to at the right times. And so, right, and that I think that's the education part of it, because there is a time that we want that engagement, and then there are times when that engagement has to stop. And so we need to do a little bit better job of getting folks to better understand when and how they should engage with industry.
Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We have one more question for you, Mr. Thomas, is for future acquisitions, will NOAA be looking to exercise things like the OTAs that are becoming common in the Department of Defense world?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, OTAs across the federal space have been increasing. NOAA over the past few years had OTA authority for a very narrow band of our program area, I think in the satellite area, and we've used it a couple times. But we more recently received broader OTA authority. I think just last year we received broader OTA authority. And we've just recently with the department come up with kind of the framework in which we're going to manage OTAs. So I would expect that we're going to see an increasing use of OTAs. But they are a relatively new tool for us in NOAA and with Commerce, and we're going to be keeping a pretty close eye on it, right? Because we want to be sure they're being used appropriately. But I view them as another terrific toolbox, especially in our technology areas, where we're trying to reach perhaps non-traditional companies who haven't done business with the government before, and we have unique mission sets that we need their help with. That's a really good place, a really good space for us to leverage the OTAs. So the answer is yes, we will be using them more in the future, I think.
Okay, well, great. Well, I think we're just about out of time, so wanted to provide a virtual thanks to Mr. Thomas and Major Hope today for informing us and providing great information to really support and round out the AMS forum today. So thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you participating in today's.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Great. Thank you guys for that wonderful, wonderful session. Not Heidi, I apologize. Renee, do you want to come back on quickly? Do you want to close it out, or you want me to go ahead and close to the next session?
I am happy to have you close it out. Thanks so much.
All right. This is the first one that we actually ended 2 minutes early. So well done, John. Thank you so very much for that, for taking us through. And I certainly learned a lot. And we thank all of our panelists and the moderators. And we have a break until 3:30 p.m. where we'll come back and hear about energy policy and science in the next decade. Take care. See you soon.
All right. Bye-bye now. Thank you.